Welcome to the French Tech Podcast. We're still here at Hello Tomorrow, recording in the beautiful Capitol Theatre in Singapore, exploring how deep tech can be leveraged to build a better future. I'm very happy to welcome my next guest, Blaž Bakalar, the founder of ET Bio.
Yes.
Could I ask you to quickly introduce yourself?
So, I'm from Slovenia, came here to Singapore to do my PhD, and after my PhD decided to create my own startup, pursue an idea that I'm passionate about, and Singapore so far has been very kind and very accommodative towards the whole startup environment.
So what is it that you do at ET Bio?
Right, at ET Bio we're making the next generation of air purifiers. Green, sustainable air purifiers based around microalgae.
Can you explain more about it, how it's working?
Sure. So your typical air purifier at home usually has like HEPA filters,
Yes.
which filter out particulate matter, dust, things like that. Especially during the hay season here in Asia or something like that. They're very common at home, in offices, and places like that, right?
Exactly.
But there aren't any really good solutions to combat CO2, right? And CO2 is a big problem because in closed environments, especially like office spaces, CO2 levels during the day rise up.
Oh.
And once they start rising up, they reach unsafe levels. You start feeling drowsy, nauseous, sleepy, and with chronic exposures, you can start getting headaches. So it's also a health concern.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And most people don't know because so far, the market really hasn't been there, but now with IoT, these sensors can be deployed across buildings, and it's cheap enough to do it, which then allows you to identify, okay, this is the problem.
To monitor all the...
Yes. Yeah. And then we come in and we're like, hey, we have a solution.
So you mentioned something very interesting just now. You mentioned the haze season.
Yes.
Now, for those of us who don't necessarily live here in Southeast Asia, there have been some instances all over Southeast Asia and in Asia Pacific of very serious peaks in pollution.
Yes.
And because of that, air purifiers...
So can I just... Paris is not immune to that as well.
I know.
During the winter,
Absolutely.
it can get very, very bad.
And because of those developments, right, we have air purifiers everywhere these days.
Yes.
We have them in our homes, we have them in our offices.
Yes.
So could I ask you to elaborate on the importance of moving towards green air purifiers?
Right. So the thing is, the current systems that are in place have been around for 70 odd years, right?
Yeah.
Mechanical based. And how they work is they just take the air outside, they cool it down, and they pump it in. And that's it. And that displaces the air inside.
Air conditioners.
Yeah, air conditioners, HVAC systems, yes. They just take the outside air, cool it, dehumidify it, humidify it, depends on where you live in the world, and then just pump it inside to basically dilute it, right? But that's kind of very inefficient, especially because when large buildings get built, going from an architectural design to then computer simulation studies to actually building it, and there's many defects in there, right?
Right.
Which means that if you're pumping in air, there are certain parts that don't get enough of that air, right? And if you want to get air there, you need to pump it everywhere more, right? So in order to solve the bad part of the floor or the bad floor, you need to pump it into all of the floors where it's not needed, right? And what we're proposing is developing a device that you can deploy locally where it's needed to remove that CO2 as well as particulate matter.
Oh, okay. So everything would be integrated into a single device?
One device, standalone, deploy it, and hopefully forget about it.
So what are some of the advantages of doing this in a green way? You're using microalgae, correct?
Yes, yes. So doing it chemically is very challenging, right? That's the only other solution you can have. If you have CO2 in the air, you can do two things. You can either do it biologically, and nature is doing it all the time. It has been doing it for 4 billion years, or 3.5, something like that. For a long, long time.
Long time.
Yeah, right? And it has perfected its system over many, many generations to make it very efficient as it can get, right? So it uses photosynthesis to trap that CO2 into biomass. While if we do it chemically, we still haven't gotten to where we want to. And more importantly, the amount of times you would need to change the chemical solution and then the impact of all of those chemicals on the environment, it's not nice, right? While if you do it with algae, the way we want to do it, what we envision is you could eat that algae as a food supplement. Actually, people are doing it today already. Right?
So it's really sustainable.
I'd like to talk to those people.
Yeah. You can ask one of the biggest population segments of the population who does it. It's actually vegans and vegetarians because it has a very good nutrient profile.
Yeah.
So it helps if you're vegan or vegetarian to help you, get the nutrients that you want and need.
So why isn't anyone else, or why haven't people developed these technologies earlier?
Right. It's not easy. First of all, nobody cared up until recently.
Nobody cared
about air quality. Not really.
Oh.
It's only recently that people actually started to care.
And because of the sensor also.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you measure,
that's the thing. That's actually customers that we find and signed like contracts with to supply them with the device are usually the most vocal ones are the ones who install these sensors. Because then you can have an app. Then you see it on your screen, like it's super bad here. And then if it's red on that screen, and then you start making the mental connection. Oh, okay, these people don't feel that well. Why don't they feel that well? Because the air is bad.
You need to be aware first.
Yes.
But one could argue that there's a giant economic incentive, right? For companies, for example, that lose potentially enormous amount of productivity.
Exactly.
Right.
If half of the building is asleep after 3 p.m.
Yeah, but it's a established thing in the society where it takes time for people to, which is great, right? We don't want to walk into a market that's established. We want to walk into a market that's on the rise.
Exactly.
And what we think is, if you believe in IoT, so that these sensors will be deployed, and if you believe that people will care eventually about it, and I think there's good precedent for that. People didn't used to care about food or water. Now, increasingly, almost everybody cares about it. Air will get there soon enough.
So the most challenge that you are coping with, it's really the maturity of the market.
Yes.
And the awareness of the...
Yes. That's one of them. But again, we don't see it as a problem. It's actually nice because people haven't still identified it on a large enough scales where you throw enough people, resources, and knowledge behind a problem to actually go dive for a solution. So we've also identified, based on what previous companies have done, a few of their misconceptions, and we plan on fixing those so the device could actually be deployed and work.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there anything right now that you're particularly excited about in terms of development? Either markets or technology
raising money.
Or innovation? Raising money.
At what stage are you actually
so
right now?
We've actually been incubated by Entrepreneur First here in Singapore.
Okay.
I think you also know it. You have it in Paris, in London, and Berlin, in Europe.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And they're our first investors. After we formed the team, identified the problem, found a solution for it, made sure that we fit as a team to actually go pursue it. They funded us, and now we're looking for seed or pre-seed funding, depends on how you want to.
All right. Yeah. To really try to grow what you've built so far.
We
bring it to market.
We have designs, we have a proof of concept, we have the data. Now it's just a question of scaling it up and making sure that it works on the scale that it needs to work.
Fantastic. Well, I definitely hope that works out for you. And
me
I
too.
would be one of your first clients here for sure.
Yeah.
If not for the air purification, then for the edible algae.
Oh yeah. The funny thing is, many people we talk to are like, "Oh man, I want that for my home."
Yeah.
Everybody wants for their home, right? But we can't currently bring it for the home because you need to make it cheap and simple enough.
Right. You're not there
for
yet.
mass mass production for consumers.
Well, maybe at your round B.
Yeah.
We'll be having this conversation for consumer
hopefully.
applications.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
No problem. Thank you for
And I hope
taking.
you're having a great time here at the conference.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a great
Thank you.
conference. Great conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.